The barbed wire tore at my jeans as I stumbled through the dusk, heart pounding like a war drum. I wasn't supposed to be here, not on his land. Not after everything our families had done to each other. But the fading light and my own damn stubbornness had led me straight into the lion's den. My name's Elias Navarro, and I grew up in the shadow of a feud older than the Montana hills themselves. The Navarros and the Callahans had been at each other's throats for 3 generations. Ever since my great-grandfather accused theirs of stealing cattle and burning our barn. Nobody remembers the truth anymore. But the hate, that's real. It's in the air we breathe, the glares we trade at the county fair, the whispers that follow us like ghosts. So when my truck broke down 5 miles from home, and I took a shortcut through Callahan land, I knew I was asking for trouble. The sky bled orange as I trudged through the tall grass, my boots sinking into the earth. I'd been mapping out a new hiking trail for my family's struggling outdoor business, our last shot at saving the ranch. The GPS on my phone was useless out here, and I'd misjudged the boundary line. Big mistake. I heard the crack of a branch behind me, sharp as a gunshot, and froze. My pulse spiked. I wasn't alone. Lost. Navarro. The voice was low, rough, and unmistakably his Jasper Callahan, the golden boy of the family I was raised to despise. He stepped out from the shadow of a pine, all lean muscle and sharp jawline, his green eyes glinting like a predator's in the fading light. He was older than me by a year, maybe 2, but carried himself like he owned the whole damn world. Maybe out here. He did. I'm just passing through, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the heat creeping up my neck. Didn't mean to step on your precious dirt. Jasper tilted his head, a slow smirk curling his lips. You're on my land, Elias. That's not just dirt, it's Callahan property. And you know what we do with trespassers. I squared my shoulders, refusing to back down. What? You gonna shoot me? Go ahead and try. My family'll burn this place to the ground. His laugh was sharp, cutting through the tension like a blade. Tempting. But I've got something better in mind. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell the cedar and leather on him. Close enough that I noticed the way his breath hitched. Just for a second. You're mine now, Navarro. You crossed the line. So you play by my rules. My stomach twisted. Half fury. Half something I didn't want to name. I don't belong to anybody. I snapped. But my voice cracked. Betraying me. Jasper's eyes flicked to my mouth. And for one reckless moment, I thought he might close the distance between us. Instead, he turned and jerked his head toward a dirt path. Follow me, he said. It wasn't a request. I should have run. Should have bolted back to Navarro land and never looked back. But something in his voice, something raw, unguarded, made my feet move. I followed him through the twilight, my heart a traitor, my mind screaming that I was walking into a trap. The Callahan ranch house loomed ahead, a sprawling relic of old money and older grudges. Its weathered wood and wide porch screamed legacy, the kind my family could only dream of. Jasper didn't speak as he led me inside. Past framed photos of stern-faced Callahans and a rifle mounted above the fireplace. My boots echoed on the hardwood, each step amplifying the insanity of being here. Sit, he said, pointing to a leather couch. I didn't. He didn't push it, just leaned against the wall, arms crossed, studying me like I was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. What do you want? Callahan, I asked, my voice low. You gonna hold me hostage? Call your daddy and tell him you caught a Navarro. Jasper's jaw tightened, but his eyes softened. Just a fraction. You think I'd do that? Turn you over like some trophy? He stepped closer, and I hated how my body didn't flinch away. I don't want you locked up, Elias. I want. He stopped, running a hand through his dark blonde hair, frustration etching lines into his face. Hell, I don't even know what I want. But you're here, and I'm not letting you go until we figure this out. Figure what out? I demanded, my chest tight. This feud. Our families. Or why you're looking at me like I'm not just the enemy. He froze. And for the first time, Jasper Callahan looked lost, vulnerable. It was gone in a blink, replaced by that infuriating smirk. Careful, Navarro. You're starting to sound like you care. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to grab him by the collar and God help Mado something else entirely. Instead, I turned away, my hands clenched. This is a mistake. I'm leaving. You won't make it far, he said, his voice quieter now, almost pleading. Not tonight. Not with the storm coming. I glanced out the window. Dark clouds churned on the horizon, promising rain and worse. He was right. Damn him. I was stuck. That night, the storm hit hard. Rain lashed the windows, and thunder shook the walls. Jasper gave me a guest room, sparse but clean, with a quilt that smelled faintly of lavender. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every glance. Why hadn't he turned me in? Why hadn't I fought harder to leave? And why did my chest ache every time I thought of his eyes on me? Morning brought no answers. Jasper was already up, frying eggs in the kitchen, his flannel shirt rolled up to his elbows. He didn't look like the heir to a ranching empire, just a guy, tired and human, with shadows under his eyes that matched mine. You sleep? He asked, not looking up. Barely, I admitted. You. He shrugged, sliding a plate toward me. Eat. Then we talk. I didn't touch the food. Talk about what? You can't keep me here. Jasper, this isn't some game. His fork stilled, and when he looked at me, there was no smirk, no bravado, just raw, unguarded truth. I know it's not a game, Elias, but you being here, it's not just about the feud. Not for me. My breath caught. I wanted to ask what he meant, to demand he spell it out, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I grabbed the plate and ate, if only to buy time. The eggs were too good for a guy I was supposed to hate. By noon, the storm had passed, but the tension between us hadn't. We walked the ranch, Jasper pointing out the boundaries, the cattle, the places where our family's histories collided. He talked about his father, a hard man who'd never forgiven Navarro, and I told him about my mom, who'd raised me alone after Dad drank himself into the grave. It was the most we'd ever said to each other, and every word felt like a step toward something dangerous. As the sun dipped low, we stopped by a creek, the water glinting like liquid gold. Jasper sat on a rock, his knees drawn up, and I stood nearby, too restless to settle. Why'd you let me stay? I asked finally, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine. Because I've been watching you, Elias, for years. At the fairs, in town, when you didn't know I was there. And every time, I told myself it was hate. But it wasn't. It never was. The world tilted. My heart pounded so loud I was sure he could hear it. You're a Callahan, I said, but the words felt hollow, like a shield I didn't believe in anymore. And you're a Navarro, he shot back, standing now, close enough that I could feel the heat of him. But that's not all we are, is it? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because in that moment, with the creek murmuring and the sky burning red, I knew he was right. And it terrified me. The creek's gentle ripple was the only sound as Jasper's words hung between us, heavy as the Montana sky. I wanted to run, to deny the pull in my chest, but my feet stayed rooted. tethered to him. This wasn't just about trespassing Anna Maria, it was about crossing a line neither of us could uncross. Over the next few days, I didn't leave. I told myself it was the storm damage roads washed out. My truck still dead, but the truth was murkier. Jasper didn't push, didn't demand. Just let me exist in his space. We worked side by side, fixing fences, herding cattle, our silences filled with unspoken questions. Every brush of his hand, every glance that lingered too long, set my nerves on fire. I hated him for it. I hated myself more. One night, as we sat on the porch, the stars sharp above us, Jasper broke the quiet. You ever think about leaving this place? The feud, the land, all of it. I snorted, leaning back against the railing. Every damn day. But it's in my blood. Navarro land is all I've got left of my mom. You. He stared at the horizon, his profile carved in moonlight. Same. Except it's not just the land. It's expectations. My dad. This ranch. The name. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning in it. I looked at him. Really looked. And saw the weight he carried. Not just a Callahan, but a man trapped by legacy. Same as me. Then why stay? I asked. His eyes met mine, steady and searching. Because running means leaving everything behind, including you. My breath hitched. I wanted to laugh it off, to call him crazy. But the sincerity in his voice stopped me cold. Instead, I stood and walked to the edge of the porch, needing distance. You don't know me, Jasper. Not really. I know enough, he said, following me. I know you're stubborn as hell, loyal to a fault, and you've got a heart bigger than you let on. I know I've spent years pretending I didn't see it. I turned, my chest tight. And what? You think this can just happen? Our families would lose their minds. Let them, he said, his voice fierce. I'm done letting their hate decide who I am, who we could be. The air crackled, and for a moment, I let myself imagine a world where we weren't Navarros and Callahans, just Elias and Jasper. But reality crashed in, cold and hard. It's not that simple, I whispered. It could be, he said, stepping closer. His hand grazed mine, tentative, like he was afraid I'd bolt. I didn't. I couldn't. And when his fingers curled around mine, warm and sure, I felt something shift, something I'd been fighting since the moment I trespassed. The next morning, trouble came knocking. A black SUV rolled up the drive, dust billowing like a warning. Jasper's father, Richard Callahan, stepped out, his face a storm cloud. I'd seen him before, always from a distance, his presence as imposing as the mountains. Now, he was here, and I was the intruder. What the hell is this? Richard barked, his eyes locking on me. A Navarro in my house. Jasper stepped in front of me, his shoulders squared. He's here because I let him stay. Dad. He got caught in the storm. Richard's gaze narrowed. Venomous. You think I'm stupid? This is about that damn feud. He's spying, isn't he? Trying to undermine us. I'm not, I started. But Jasper cut me off. He's not spying. He's here because. Jasper hesitated, and my stomach dropped. Because I asked him to stay. Richard's laugh was cold, cutting. You're a fool, Jasper. You think you can trust a Navarro? They'll bleed you dry, just like they tried to do to your grandfather. I clenched my fists, anger flaring. My family's not the one who started this. Callahan. Maybe look in a mirror. Richard's face reddened, but Jasper stepped between us, his voice low and firm. Enough. This isn't about the past. Elias stays. That's my call. For a moment, I thought Richard might hit him. Instead, he spat on the ground and stormed back to his car. "You're making a mistake, boy," he called over his shoulder. "And you'll pay for it." As the SUV peeled away, Jasper turned to me, his face pale but resolute. "He's wrong," he said. "You're not a mistake." I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But the weight of his father's words lingered, a reminder of the world waiting to tear us apart. Days turned into a week, and the ranch became our refuge. We stole moments' quiet talks by the creek, shared coffee at dawn, a brush of shoulders that felt like a promise. But the outside world wouldn't stay out. My sister, Rosa, called, her voice tight with worry. "Eli, where are you? People are talking. They saw you on Callahan land." "Let them talk," I said, but my gut twisted. The feud wasn't just his story, it was alive, festering, and we were poking a hornet's nest. That night, Jasper found me in the barn, staring at a rusted tractor like it held answers. "You're thinking about leaving," he said. Not a question. I didn't look at him. "I have to. It's gonna destroy us both." He grabbed my arm, turning me to face him. "Don't run, Elias. Not from this. Not from me." His eyes burned with something fierce, something I couldn't deny. Before I could think, I closed the distance, my lips crashing into his. The kiss was desperate, hungry, like we'd both been starving for it our whole lives. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer. And for one perfect moment, the world didn't exist, no feud, no families, just us. When we broke apart, breathless, I pressed my forehead to his. "What are we doing, Jasper?" "Something real," he whispered. "Something worth fighting for." But as we stood there, tangled in each other, I heard the crunch of gravel outside. Headlights swept across the barn, and my heart sank. Someone was coming in, they weren't here for peace. The headlights cut through the barn's dim interior like a blade, pinning us in their glare. Jasper's hand tightened on mine, but I pulled away, my heart hammering. Whoever was out there wasn't here for a friendly chat. "Stay here," Jasper said, his voice low, but I shook my head. "No way. If this is trouble, I'm not hiding." I stepped toward the barn door, my pulse racing, and he followed, his presence steady at my side. Outside, two figures stood silhouetted against the truck's lights. One was Richard Callahan, his face a mask of fury. The other was my uncle, Mateo Navarro, his broad frame tense with barely restrained anger. The air crackled with the weight of decades-old hate. "Elias," Mateo barked, his voice booming. "Get over here. Now." I didn't move. Jasper stepped closer, his shoulder brushing mine. "He's not going anywhere," he said, his tone calm but unyielding. Richard sneered. "You think you can keep one of ours? Boy, this is war." "It's not war," I snapped, my voice shaking with adrenaline. "It's just us, trying to live. Why can't you let it go?" Mateo's eyes narrowed, and I saw the pain behind his anger, years of loss, of pride, of a family clinging to a fight no one could win. "You're a Navarro, Elias. You don't get to walk away from that. And you're a Callahan." Richard spat at Jasper. "You're throwing away everything for him." Jasper didn't flinch. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing something better." The words hit me like a punch, and for a moment, I forgot the danger, the feud, the men glaring at us. But reality snapped back when Mateo stepped forward, his fists clenched. "You're coming home, Elias, or I drag you." Jasper moved to block him, but I grabbed his arm. "Don't," I whispered. This is my fight, too. I faced my uncle, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at me. I'm not a kid anymore. Mateo, I'm not fighting your battles. I'm done with this feud. Mateo's face softened, just for a second, before hardening again. You'll regret this, he said, turning back to the truck. Richard lingered, his eyes boring into Jasper. You're no son of mine, he said, and the words cut deeper than any blade. Then he was gone, the truck's taillights fading into the night. The next few days were a blur of tension and quiet defiance. Jasper and I kept to the ranch, avoiding town, avoiding the whispers that had started to spread. But we couldn't avoid the truth. Our families weren't going to let this go. Not without a fight. One afternoon, as we repaired a fence near the creek, Jasper stopped, his hammer still in hand. What happens when they come back? He asked, his voice quiet. I didn't have an answer. We face it. Together. He looked at me, his eyes searching. You mean that? I nodded, my throat tight. Yeah, I do. That night, we didn't sleep apart. The guest room stayed empty, and I found myself in Jasper's bed, his arms around me as the world outside seemed to hold its breath. It wasn't just about desire, though, that was there, burning bright, but about trust, about building something neither of us had dared to dream of. We talked until dawn, about fears, hopes, the lives we wanted beyond the feud. For the first time, I felt like I could breathe. But peace never lasts long in a war zone. The next morning, Rosa showed up, her face pale and her hands shaking. Eli, they're planning something. Mateo and some of the others theory talking about coming for you. For both of you. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Coming for us? She glanced at Jasper, then back at me. They think you're betraying the family. They're saying they'll make an example out of you. Jasper's jaw tightened. Let them try. This is my land. They won't touch him. Rosa shook her head, tears in her eyes. You don't get it, Jasper. This isn't just about land anymore. It's about pride. They'll burn this place down if they have to. I grabbed her hand, my heart racing. Rosa, talk to them. Tell them I'm not the enemy. Tell them. They won't listen, she said, her voice breaking. Not to me. Not to you. You have to leave. Eli. Both of you. I looked at Jasper, his face set with determination. I'm not running, he said. This is my home, and you're part of it now. My chest ached, torn between fear and something deeper, something that felt like love. Then we fight, I said, my voice steady. Not with fists or guns, but with something they can't take away. We spent the day preparing, not for war, but for truth. Jasper called a meeting with his ranch hands, men loyal to him, not his father. I reached out to Rosa, asking her to bring anyone in our family who might listen. By nightfall, a small group gathered in the barn. Jasper's crew, Rosa, and a few cousins who'd always questioned the feud. We stood together, Jasper and I, and told them everything. The trespass, the nights we'd spent talking, the way we'd found something worth more than hate. It wasn't easy. There were shouts, accusations, tears, but there were also nods, quiet moments of understanding. For the first time, I saw a crack in the wall our families had built. But as the meeting ended, a low rumble broke the night. Trucks. Too many. Headlights swept the horizon. And I knew this wasn't a negotiation. This was a reckoning. The barn doors rattled as the trucks surrounded us, their engines growling like beasts. Jasper grabbed my hand, his grip fierce, and I felt the weight of everything we'd built in that moment, fragile, but worth defending. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about breaking a cycle that had poisoned too many lives. Stay close, Jasper whispered, his voice steady despite the chaos outside. The barn was a fortress, but it wouldn't hold forever. Rosa stood by my side, her face pale but resolute, while Jasper's ranch hands formed a loose circle, their eyes darting to the doors. Richard Callahan's voice boomed through a megaphone. Jasper, you've got one chance to end this. Send the Navarro out, and we'll talk. Jasper's laugh was bitter. Talk? Like you talked to his grandfather. I'm done with your lies. Dad. I stepped forward, my heart pounding. This ends tonight, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. No more blood. No more hate. The barn door creaked open, and Richard stood there, flanked by Mateo and a dozen others Navarras and Callahans, united in their fury. But I saw something else in their eyes, exhaustion. They were tired of this war, even if they didn't know it yet. Elias, Mateo said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. Come home. This isn't you. It is me, I said, stepping closer to Jasper. I'm not your soldier. Mateo, I'm not fighting for a grudge I didn't start. And neither is he. Jasper's hand found mine, and he spoke, his voice carrying over the crowd. We're not your enemies. We're your sons, your brothers, your family. This feud has taken enough. Let it die. For a moment, there was silence, heavy and fragile. Then a cousin of mine, Diego, stepped forward, his face conflicted. He's right, he said, his voice shaking. My dad died for this feud. For what? A patch of dirt. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Richard's face twisted. But before he could speak, one of Jasper's ranch hands, a grizzled man named Hank, spoke up. I've worked this land 30 years. Never saw a Callahan or Navarro who wasn't more than their name. Let the boys be. The air shifted. I saw it in the way shoulders relaxed, the way weapons lowered. Not everyone was convinced. Richard and Mateo stood rigid, their pride unyielding, but the tide was turning. Rosa stepped forward, her voice clear. I'm a Navarro, and I'm standing with them. Who else will? One by one, others joined her, cousins, friends, even a few Callahans. It wasn't a victory. Not yet. But it was a start. Richard turned away, his silence louder than any threat. Mateo lingered, his eyes on me, then nodded once and left. The weeks that followed were hard. The feud didn't vanish overnight. Old wounds festered, and some refused to forgive. But Jasper and I stayed, building a life on the ranch. Together, we opened the land to both families. A neutral ground where kids played instead of fought, where stories were shared instead of grudges. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. One evening, as we sat by the creek, Jasper took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. You ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't trespassed? I laughed, leaning into him. I'd probably still be hating you from afar. He grinned, pulling me closer. Good thing you're a terrible navigator. Then, we kissed under the stars, the world quiet around us. The feud wasn't gone, but it was fading, replaced by something stronger: love. Hard-won and fiercely protected. We'd trespassed on enemy land, but in doing so, we'd found home. The ranch became a symbol, not of division, but of possibility. Families came together, slowly at first, then with purpose. We hosted barbecues, rebuilt fences side by side, and when the county fair rolled around, Navarras and Callahans shared a booth for the first time in decades. Jasper and I stood at the heart of it, not as enemies or heirs, but as partners, building a future where no one had to choose a side. Years later, I'd tell our story to anyone who'd listen, not just the trespass, the fight, the love, but the truth it carried. That hate can die. That love can grow in its place. And that sometimes crossing a line is the only way to find where you truly belong.